Welcome to Wellesley College's Convocation, which marks the formal start to our academic year. My name is Alex Diesel, College Marshal and Professor of Mathematics. Now please rise and join the Wellesley College Choir, directed by Lisa Graham, in singing the Alma Mater. Words can be found in your convocation program. Thank you.
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful. Welcome to Convocation. I'm Reverend Jacquelina Marquez, the Dean of Religious and Spiritual Life, and it is my privilege to offer Wellesley's land acknowledgement and today's invocation. Let us share together, each in our own way, in a moment of reflection, of prayer and thanksgiving for a new academic year. We come from many religious, spiritual, and philosophical traditions that speak to us, offering ancient guidance and strength. We are in the presence of our Creator, in the presence of our ancestors, and among friends. Sacred source of all that is good and beautiful and true, we ask that your presence be with us as we walk into this new season, unsure of what lies ahead, yet trusting that you go before us. We pause to give thanks for all that you have guided us through. While the world seems to move and endlessly change around us, you remain steadfast in your promises to us. Thank you. We ask your protection and blessing to be upon us gathered here today, and upon our entire Wellesley community. Help us to support one another with compassion and gentleness as the weeks go by. Grant us wisdom to tear down all that seeks to divide us, and the courage to create pathways for connection and understanding. May we share the best of ourselves and learn with a spirit of humility. As we gather in this place, we remember those near and far for whom peace is an elusive hope, and we entrust them to you. God of all time and all places, be with us now as we gather in expectation and celebration. Amen. We continue our time together with the reading of our Wellesley College Land Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Wellesley College is built on ancestral and traditional land of the Massachusetts people. We also recognize that the United States removal, termination, and assimilation policies and practices resulted in the forced settlement of indigenous lands and the attempted erasure of indigenous cultures and languages. We further acknowledge the oppression, injustices, and discrimination that indigenous people have endured, and that there is much work to be done on the important journey to reconciliation. We commit to strengthen our understanding of the history and contemporary lives of indigenous peoples and to steward this land. We further recognize the many indigenous people living here today, including the Massachusetts, the Wampanoag, and Nipmuc nations, who have rich ancestral histories in Wellesley and its surrounding communities. Today, their descendants remind us that they are still here, where they maintain a vital and visible presence. We honor and respect the enduring relationship between these peoples and this land, as well as the strength of indigenous culture and knowledge, the continued existence of tribal sovereignty, and the principle of tribal self-determination. It is now my pleasure to introduce Wellesley College President Paula A. Johnson.
Thank you, Dean Marquez. Good afternoon. Welcome to the start of Wellesley's 148th year. Welcome to our new faculty and our new administrative and union members, and welcome to all of you who are returning. A big welcome back to our returning students, the Green Class of 2025. The Red Class of 2024. To our seniors, the brilliant Yellow Class of 2023, it is so great to be here with you today. And of course, a heartfelt special welcome to the incoming Purple Class of 2026. To our 5 new Davis Scholars and to our 15 new transfer students. We are just so happy to have you with us. And as we start this year, we hope that the families of our students, faculty, and staff who have been impacted by the natural disasters here in the United States and around the world, and those whose families are in conflict zones around the globe, are as safe as they can be. Our thoughts are with you and with them. Our first-year class this year is extremely special, not merely in terms of its academic strength, but also in terms of its diversity. Arriving here from high schools in 42 states, the District of Columbia, Guam, and Puerto Rico, as well as 23 countries outside of the U.S. This diversity is racial and ethnic as well as geographic. Students identifying as Black, Asian American, Latinx, Native American, or multiracial make up 54% of our class. It's cultural too. 48% of our first-year class speak a language other than English at home, and 21% are the first in their families to attend a 4-year college. So this diversity may very well be Wellesley's single greatest strength and opportunity, something that has been recognized for many, many generations at Wellesley. For example, Wellesley's second president, Alice Freeman Palmer, who was named president in 1882, wrote a famous lecture that considered why young women should be sent to college at a time when it was so uncommon. One of the most important advantages she saw was that college allowed a young woman to encounter peers from different backgrounds. And I quote, "She realizes how much richer a world she lives in than she ever dreamed of at home. The wealth that lies in differences has dawned upon her vision." I would venture to say that Wellesley was way ahead of its time. In a recent communication to the community, I shared a story of one such Wellesley-inspired expansion of vision described by Virginia Foster Durr, who was a student in the early 1920s. At that time, Wellesley had a rotating tables policy in its dining halls, assigning students randomly to eat with each other for a month. Virginia, a white student from Jim Crow, Alabama, came down to dinner the first night of her sophomore year, saw a black student assigned to her table, and balked. She was quickly set straight and told that if she did not abide by Wellesley's seating policy, she would be asked to withdraw in the morning. For the first time, Virginia saw that racist beliefs she had never questioned were considered foolish and reprehensible by a community that she adored. During the sleepless night that followed, she began to question her beliefs. Years later, when she returned to speak at Wellesley's classes, she would retell this story and say, "And so my life began." And what a life it was. Virginia Foster Durr went on to become an important figure in the civil rights movement, joining the NAACP and helping to secure voting rights for blacks and poor whites. She became friends with Rosa Parks and in 1955 helped to post bail for her after Rosa refused to give up her seat on the bus. She also inspired psychologists to take notice of what is now referred to as a Virginia Durr moment, an event that challenges our core values in ways that spur moral development. All of us, of every circumstance, if we are fortunate, will have Virginia Durr moments in our own lives when our narrow conceptions of humanity begin to crack, our hearts expand, and our lives really begin. Admittedly, it's not always pleasant to have one's core beliefs and values challenged, but I want to urge our students to embrace your differences, do the hard and sometimes uncomfortable work of learning from each other, both inside the classroom and outside, and you will gather the richest gifts that Wellesley has to offer. Of course, to learn from each other, we also need to be patient with each other. We still live in a society with many fault lines, including those of gender, race, income, generation, geography, and political orientation. And there's a learning process for all of us when we first attempt to build that bridge called a relationship across those fault lines. We may make mistakes, give offense, and we may need a little forgiveness as a first step on the road to real connection. 4 years ago, Wellesley commissioned a task force on speech and inclusion to assess our community's capacity to address challenging issues and to recommend ways that we can foster open and productive debate about them. After listening to the Wellesley community in a series of town halls, the task force found a call-out culture here on campus and self-silencing as a result. People being unwilling to take the chance of saying something that might subject them to being shamed. Many of our higher education peers are finding similar issues on their campuses. We found that one major factor driving the call-out culture and self-silencing was mutual mistrust. As a community, we weren't trusting the good intentions of people who say something clumsy or controversial. And we weren't trusting that our own clumsy or controversial speech would be overlooked in favor of our good intentions. Instead of learning from each other, we were eliminating the possibility. In order to fight this atmosphere of self-censorship, our Presidential Commission on Ethnicity, Race, and Equity, known as CERI, has made trust one of its core themes this year. As Professor Cord Whitaker, who chairs the commission, told me, and I quote, "There's not going to be a dialogue without trust and the grace to allow people to feel free enough to speak." I want to emphasize that dismissing those who disagree with us is not only a Wellesley-centric problem, but an expression of something that's happening nationwide. A recent NBC news poll of second-year college students found that almost half wouldn't choose to room with someone who voted for a different presidential candidate. And it's not just college students. A recent report of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences said that when they considered ways to revitalize our democracy, put it this way: when Americans are asked what unites us across our differences, the increasingly common answer is nothing. Diane Hesson, a member of the Boston Globe editorial board and a market researcher who studies American voters, has found that across voters in every demographic category, there's overwhelming worry about this divisiveness. And as much as the media and political figures contribute to the polarization, voters believe that the most dominant factor is that we as a nation have lost our ability to have conversations with people who are different from us, that we have lost our ability to listen to each other. And I would argue that this is not just the case in the United States, but increasingly across the globe. Clearly, we can unite in common purpose when our shared values demand it. All summer long, Chair Benny Thompson and Vice Chair Liz Cheney of the U.S. House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol have been giving us regular lessons in trust, respect, and the setting aside of policy disagreements in service of major principles. Representative Thompson is the lone Democrat in the Mississippi congressional delegation, descended from slaves, the son of a teacher and an auto mechanic, who joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and registered Black voters while a student at Tougaloo College in Jackson, Mississippi. Representative Cheney, on the other hand, is Republican political royalty, whose politics are extremely conservative. She's the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney and writer and historian Lynn Cheney, a descendant of William Cheney, an Englishman who emigrated to Boston in the 17th century and became a wealthy farmer. Despite radically different histories, backgrounds, and politics, they have demonstrated a common commitment to democracy and a shared understanding of our national narrative that is more meaningful because it emerges from and transcends their differences. Here at Wellesley, we are at such an interesting moment of opportunity to create something powerful out of our own differences. As we emerge from the social isolation imposed by this recent pandemic, all of us a little uncertain of our footing, what better time to rethink how we relate to each other? We're a small community of brilliant people devoted to education and scholarship. We can become a community in which everyone has the ability to express their point of view without fear. One that revives the lost art of respectful listening. one that becomes a model of civility for the larger communities all around us. Wellesley students are known for their agency, and this is well within your power. Building such a community requires a mindset that combines curiosity and courage. All of us have to embrace the discomfort of hearing, learning, and trying something new, and accept the risk that some of it will force us to give up cherished preconceptions and rethink everything. English philosopher John Stuart Mill tells us that keeping our minds open to criticism of our own opinions and conduct while seeking out a variety of views is the only way any wise person has ever acquired wisdom. Nor, he writes, is it in the nature of human intellect to become wise in any other manner. I promise you, the time you spend here in conversation, sometimes circular, sometimes heated, sometimes silly, will never be wasted time. Last spring, Brian Stevenson, the public interest lawyer and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, which works to end mass incarceration and structural racism, gave the Wellesley community a slightly more emotional formula for expanding our worldview. He said that if we want to help people who have been mistreated in our society, we need to get proximate to them, to wrap our arms around them and affirm their humanity and dignity. When we get proximate, he said, we see and understand things that are essential to our capacity to provide justice. My hope for all of you is that you will get proximate to each other in order to see and learn all you possibly can at Wellesley. And I hope the gains are emotional and spiritual as well as intellectual. I hope that you build strong, enduring friendships here with people you didn't expect to bond with, and that you enjoy the contrasts as well as all that you share. I hope that when you leave Wellesley, those friendships will have taught you so much about life and our common humanity, and that you approach all new connections with confidence, optimism, and the sense that there is something to be learned. So thank you, and let's have a great year. And now, Provost Andy Shemin.
Thank you, President Johnson. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to add my welcome on behalf of the Wellesley College faculty to our new Purple class of 2026. A warm welcome back to the classes of 2025 and 2024. And hail to the yellow class of 2023. Resplendent in the academic regalia that you will wear at your commencement next spring. Finally, greetings to my colleagues in the faculty and administration. Last year was a long and grueling one. I hope you all have had time for relaxation and rejuvenation over the summer and have returned to campus with new energy and optimism for the year ahead. Now, this is my 35th Wellesley convocation. And there's no way around it, that's a lot of convocations. And it would be reasonable to wonder how someone who has been here for so many years could possibly relate to those of you in the Purple class who have been here for barely a week. I'm going to try to make that connection by transporting myself back to my own first convocation, which was held in the outdoor theater on September 6, 1988. The weather was a little bit better. I'm going to try to recall some of what I was feeling on that occasion, or more accurately, given the way memory works, reconstruct what I might have been feeling. First of all, I remember feeling quite in awe, as I expect you're feeling right now, at the authority and eloquence of the President. President Johnson's predecessor in 1988 was Nan Cohen. Perhaps because I myself was coming to Wellesley from a less informal and more deferential culture, I was struck by how everyone, including the Wellesley News, called the President by her first name, Nan. That afternoon, Nan's theme was the vision that our 19th century founders, the Durants, had to educate young women for a life of what they termed noblest usefulness, a concept that was doubly provocative in its day, both because the education of women was a radical idea in its own right, and because combining noble and useful as educational goals unsettled elitist conceptions of a liberal arts education. The president of college government also spoke, as Alexandra is going to speak in a few minutes. Her name was Eve Waterfall. She seemed relaxed and confident and received way more cheers than any of the college leaders, as I expect will happen again today. The president and deans talked about the life of the institution, but Eve's message was about the students' lives, about making the most of the year ahead, wherever they were in their Wellesley journeys. And I was sitting where you are, feeling pretty nervous. I hadn't yet taught my first class. While I was half listening to the speakers, the other half of my brain was contemplating the prospect of walking into Founders 207 the next day to meet the 30 students who'd signed up for History 201, Europe since 1600. I hoped they didn't know how terrified I was. Faculty members, too, suffer from imposter syndrome. There was so much I didn't know about Wellesley. I couldn't find my way from Founders to Green, still challenged to find my way from Green to Founders. Pendleton and the Science Center seemed daunting and fortress-like. It took me weeks to muster the courage to enter them. I got lost on the way from my designated parking lot, which seemed to be somewhere in Natick, to the center of the campus. I didn't know what Academic Council was, or what Lake Day was, or what SEQs were. When two older people, probably substantially younger than myself, but I'd say putting myself in 1988, two older people showed up at the back of my first class the next day, I imagined that perhaps they were senior faculty sent to check up on my teaching and see whether I was good enough to keep on, which made me even more nervous. Only later did I realize they were alums just auditing my class. Still less was I aware of the work happening behind the scenes that was silently shaping the future of the college. The work of committees and departments, the work of the president and senior leadership, the work of the trustees, the work of individual members of our community. In that year, I later learned, a researcher at what was then called the Center for Research on Women, Peggy McIntosh, published a famous paper entitled White Privilege and Male Privilege, a personal account of coming to see correspondence through work in women's studies. Peggy's paper became enormously influential, not just on this campus, but across the nation, shaping language and sparking debates that are still, of course, continuing. Also in that year, a trustee, Catherine Wasserman Davis, class of 1928, pledged a gift to build a freestanding museum on our campus, ultimately transforming what was then a really dusty, empty lot behind Jewett into the Davis Museum. That afternoon, I was just looking to find a home, both an academic home and an actual community. I was eager to learn as well as to teach. I was hoping to contribute in some meaningful way to something larger than myself. Of course, I was a faculty member, not a student, but perhaps some of what I was feeling resonates with what some of you are feeling today. I was trying to figure out what kind of college this was and whether there was a place here for me. In response, what I heard at Convocation in 1988 was a question and an invitation. The question was about the future. What kind of college did we want to be? The invitation to all of us in the audience was to participate in answering that question. It's the same question I want to pose today as we emerge from this protracted, terrible pandemic. What kind of college do we want to be in the years ahead? Speaking from the perspective of the Provost's Office, I'd like to formulate the question in three ways. First, what kind of human community do we want to be in the years ahead? During COVID, our sense of connection has been tested perhaps like never before. We have endured isolation and fragmentation. The recourse to remote work and Zoom communication is a bell that cannot be unrung. But can we make something that we call remote sustain the highly personalized face-to-face community that we aspire to be? How can we yield the benefits and efficiencies of remote technology without allowing it to make us anonymous to one another and to convert human connections based in trust into automated transactional ones? Second, what kind of academic community do we want to be in the years ahead? The academic deans and I recently wrote a letter to the faculty in which we acknowledged how the pandemic has disrupted their teaching and your learning. For a few moments, I'm going to quote or paraphrase from our letter, so I want to recognize that many of these words were written by Dean Jeffries or Dean Nunez. For 2.5 years, my colleagues and I have repeatedly asked everyone to give each other grace and assume that the people we collaborate with and teach are doing their best to meet agreed-upon goals, even when we or they fall short. That empathy has gotten us through the immediate crisis. At some point, however, and we believe that point may be now, we have to move beyond the phase of emergency and find a new balance in our academic life. As the college's strategic plan emphasized, and as the deans and I reiterated to the faculty, inclusive excellence is at the heart of the academic community we want to be. We believe that we can best achieve excellence by unlocking the power of diversity through inclusion and collaboration across differences. We depend on each other as a community of learners, and the fullest learning cannot be achieved without contributions from all community members. The core of inclusive excellence at Wellesley is an academic program that challenges all students to grow as creators, thinkers, problem solvers, communicators, and citizens determined to change the world for the better. Beyond requiring a program in which no student is subject to discrimination, insult, or stereotype, the goal of inclusive excellence is to create equal opportunity for all of our students to access every academic discipline, regardless of their previous preparation. But excellence can't mean the absence of challenge and discomfort within an academic setting, nor can it mean the absence of structured expectations for academic work. Inclusive excellence thrives in an academic culture that emphasizes active participation in class, attentive in-person communication, and generous collaboration among peers. It thrives in a setting where there are transparent and agreed-upon expectations for our shared academic life, including about such mundane matters as meeting deadlines. This is the moment to articulate those expectations about the academic community we want to be and to hold ourselves accountable for them. And finally, a third question. What kind of liberal arts college do we want to be in the years ahead? As we emerge from the isolation and fragmentation of COVID, we have the opportunity to realize the potential of reform ideas that our strategic plan articulated in the depths of the pandemic. If, as many of us believe, we have created a degree with too many boxes to be checked, perhaps this is the moment to shift the structure of a Wellesley education towards guided exploration and loosen the guardrails of overly prescriptive distribution requirements. Fewer boxes to check. Perhaps this is the moment to make more space in our curriculum for courses that cross the boundaries between disciplines, and to ensure that this new curriculum centers the intellectual concerns of humanistic study as well as of social science and STEM. And in the spirit of our founders' ideas about noble usefulness, perhaps this is the moment to draw together the different facets of your educational experience in the classroom, in residential life, in service, out in the world, into a more cohesive educational whole. Asking the question, what kind of college do we want to be in the years ahead, invites everyone into the conversation. That question spoke to me when I was a newly arrived faculty member here. I hope it speaks to you and inspires you to participate in defining Wellesley for the generations to come. And for all of us, I wish an academic year ahead that brings a new birth of community to our campus, a new optimism and confidence about what we can accomplish together. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce the President of College Government, Alexandra Brooks.
Thank you, Provost Shannon. Good afternoon, fellow students, esteemed faculty, staff, administration, and another welcome to the 2022-2023 Wellesley College Convocation. My name is Alexandra Brooks, and I am honored to be serving as this year's College Government President. I would first like to acknowledge that this beautiful campus that we call home sits on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, and Wampanoag nations. And I recognize the continuing presence of Indigenous people on this land and their continuing contributions to institutions like this college. Acknowledging these things is imperative as only the first step in understanding that colonialism and exploitation are not relics of our past, but rather exist as ongoing processes, and we must be mindful and actively working against our participation in them. With that, I want to congratulate everyone who made it here, but especially the seniors, my golden class of 2023. We have definitely not had a traditional Wellesley experience, and I know that many of us feel that we have had crucial moments of our college experience lost due to factors out of our control. We were just first years entering Wellesley when we unexpectedly got sent home from campus in March of 2020, and suddenly in the blink of an eye, we're here wearing our graduation robes, wondering where all the time has gone. However, as we all stand here today, I ask you all to not think about how things could have been different or the things that we missed, but rather relish in the unconventional paths you got to forge. Lost my spot. From being a first year in that cold March morning of 2020 and seeing the seniors bittersweetly revel in their last few days together and watching them rolling their hoops, and some of them pink hula hoops because they didn't have a chance to get their own, running down Tupelo Lane, to experiencing socially distanced parties on Sev Green, to the virtual LDOT concert, to finding COVID-safe ways to spend time with the people we love, embracing old friends, and making new. The beauty of Wellesley is, and always has been, its students. Its students who are interesting and passionate and loud and fight against injustice in their community even when others would prefer that they sit down. From the students of the 60s who protested the Vietnam War and racial discrimination, to the students of the 80s who held teach-ins against nuclear war, to the students of the 80s and 90s who fought and held sit-ins so the college would divest its endowment from its investments in apartheid South Africa, to the students of recent years who fought for the rights of trans students to attend Wellesley. to the Indigenous students who fought for the recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day and for the college to officially acknowledge the rightful stewards of the land it stands on, and for the right of an Indigenous student to give that land acknowledgement at commencement. To the students who protested for years for institutional climate action, who almost a decade ago began organizing around fossil fuel divestment and were denied, and yet continued to push for tangible change until 2 years ago they were successful. And to the current students who are fighting for the rights of trans students to exist on campus free of discrimination and with recognition from administration that trans students always have and always will exist at Wellesley. And I know that this year and in the future, there will be other issues and more problems that need solving, but I am more than confident in both current and future Wellesley students to face those injustices courageously and head-on, just as they have done in the past. To quote the 1982 commencement speech given by Maya Angelou, "Of all your attributes, courage is indeed your greatest achievement. It is the greatest of all your virtues, for without courage, you cannot practice any other virtue with consistency." However, it is certainly not easy to be courageous. Even the best of us often fail, but it's important to remember whose shoulders we stand on and who will one day stand on ours. And courage does not exist solely in fights for monumental change from an institution or government, but in daily acts of resistance and understanding. It exists in listening and learning from the people around you and realizing that it is, in fact, very okay to not be the smartest person in the room, especially at a place like Wellesley. Courage exists in savoring your time at Wellesley, surrounded by such passionate and loud students, even in the face of uncertainty of what our 4 years here will look like or what the future will hold. So I encourage you to face that uncertainty courageously and head on, relishing in the fact that absolutely none of us have any idea what the future holds or what tomorrow may bring, but that at least for today, we are here on this beautiful campus, surrounded by friends and classmates and professors. I'm so glad I get the opportunity to learn and grow alongside such an amazing group of people for one last year. Cheers to us, we made it. And I now have the honor of introducing our next speaker and my dear friend, this year's Chief Justice Nazaina Khan.
Thank you, Alexandra, for those inspiring words. Good afternoon, administration, faculty, staff, and students. My name is Nazaina Faisal Khan. I'm a member of the class of 2023, and it is my honor to be serving as your Chief Justice. Before I begin, I would like to reiterate that we live and study on occupied land and commit to advocating for the sovereignty of the Indigenous nations. To the class of 2026, our new Davis Scholars and transfer students, welcome to Wellesley. We are thrilled to have you. To the class of 2025 and 2024, welcome back. I hope this year allows you the opportunity to enjoy all of Wellesley's traditions. And to my golden yellow class of 2023, congratulations, we've made it to our final convocation. On 23rd October 1986, 50 Wellesley students were arrested for staging a live-in protest outside CLAP in response to the board's decision not to divest from apartheid South Africa. When asked for their names, Wellesley students responded with Winnie Mandela and were held in the National Guard Armory overnight. Hundreds of members of the Wellesley community wrote letters criticizing the college's decision to arrest students. One alum, Marion Gradden, 1978, even expressed her disappointment, saying that it seems Wellesley offers only an academic education and not a moral one. The Wellesley Honor Code and its principles of honesty, integrity, and respect are the moral backbone of the Wellesley experience and encapsulates Wellesley's philosophy of self-government. It affords us great academic privileges like self-scheduled exams, but it also necessitates that we hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity in our social interactions. It expects that we are unapologetically honest as we speak truth to injustice, like when Indigenous students fought for Wellesley to acknowledge it occupies Indigenous land, and those who organize vigils to advocate for bodily autonomy. It expects that we are respectful, thoughtful, and creative in building inclusive communities, like when students help raise awareness of the struggles of non-tenure faculty, supported dining hall workers' efforts to achieve workplace equity, lobbied for the college to divest from fossil fuels, and pushed for the acknowledgement of the presence of trans students on this campus, even as symbolic acknowledgements of their existence were erased. And finally, the Honor Code believes true leadership is service that begins with kindness. Values that were emulated by the Wellesley community, both in person and virtually, in making a compassionate college experience during the pandemic, and by brave students who continue to call for justice for causes in Ukraine, Palestine, and Kashmir. Just this past week, I was touched by student efforts to raise funds for flood victims in my home country, Pakistan. Over my last 3 years, I have watched in awe as Wellesley students have time and again manifested the Honor Code and pushed for a moral education in addition to an academic one. The Honor Code is only 2 sentences, but I believe its simplicity is actually its biggest strength. It is timeless and not location dependent, but rather dynamic conversation between Wellesley, our environment, and the needs of our time. The Honor Code is a commitment to living a life of honor, to pursuing a purpose larger than ourselves long after we have left this beautiful campus. As Wellesley students were being arrested in 1986, Wellesley alums found their own ways to protest. Some reduced their donations to a cent. Others shared stories of living in the segregated South, and yet others were arrested for organizing sit-ins around the world, showing us how the Honor Code can motivate protest in the moment and perseverance for the long haul. As we begin this new academic year, we carry with us all our community has lost in the past 3, but we also hold on to the hope of new possibilities. At this unique junction, a moral education is imperative. And we must ask ourselves, what communities do we want to be a part of? And by extension, what communities do we want to build? I encourage you to take some time and reflect on what a life of honor means to you at Wellesley and beyond. Ever since 1919, the year of the last pandemic, and the year the Honor Code as we know it today was officially adopted, every Wellesley class has renewed their deeply personalized commitment to service. I now invite you to join me in the ceremonial recitation of the Honor Code that you can find in your programs. Okay. As a Wellesley College student, I will act with honesty, integrity, and respect. In making this commitment, I'm accountable to the community and dedicate myself to a life of honor. Thank you. It is now my privilege to call the phenomenal Neeraja Deshpande to lead us in singing America the Beautiful, penned by Wellesley's own Catherine Dean Bates, class of 1880.
beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. O beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with sisterhood from sea to shining sea. Thank you.
And now for our closing benediction. Dear community, as we live into this new academic season, may we do so releasing fear and embracing hope. May we work together towards a more just and peaceful world. May we create a Wellesley community rooted in kindness and gratitude. May this year be full of blessing, healing, and joy. Amen. That concludes our ceremony. Step singing will be rescheduled due to the weather. Faculty, please follow the convocation marshals and let us begin the procession.